where we are now, we need to be looking forwards, not looking at what's below us. I think Chelsea, yeah, they're showing form, but below that, I've said this all season, I'm really not rating anyone outside the current top four.
Welcome to the First for LCFC podcast. Once again, myself, Jamie Thorpe, I'm joined by the two other First for LCFC.
He's flapped it.
I'm fucking lads. Oh man, Christian's name's thrown me. It's not that complicated.
This is staying in, by the way, so just pick it up as soon as you can.
I will.
Hello and welcome to episode 8. Go.
No, welcome to the First for LCFC podcast. Once again, I'm going to get it right this time. My name is Jamie Thorpe, and I'm joined by the other First for LCFC admins, Edward Noon and Christian Mosen. How are you guys?
All good.
Very good, thank you.
Good. I'm glad we got there in the end. Once again, we're going to be reviewing the big Leicester City talking points. This may be episode 8 of the podcast, but here's a cliche. Leicester City were on cloud 9 as they equaled a 24-year record for the biggest ever Premier League victory. They dismantled an abject 10-man Southampton side to smash in 9 goals and emphatically, if only temporarily, take second place in the Premier League. So we'll try and review that game. I mean, I don't even know where you start with that. It was a fantastic performance. But I think we should have a look at the individuals that really shone. Chris, was there someone within the team? Are you even able to pick a man of the match in a game like that?
Well, first of all, have you spent your day off writing that little monologue there? Because that was very well worded.
Even if I flapped it the first time round, thank you.
No, but obviously we watched the game together in Leicester last Friday now, and it was difficult, wasn't it? It's one of those games where it's so surreal. Everything was going for us. Everything was seemingly going against a Southampton team that, well, clearly didn't turn up from the get-go. I think you could pick any one of literally probably any player who really shone for Leicester. But I think, obviously, a couple of us predicted that Perez was hopefully going to get on the score sheet, which he did in style. Just some of the stuff he was doing was classy. His first touch in difficult conditions was impressive. His movement, just everything about Perez, I'd probably pick him out purely that he got himself off the mark, and hopefully that'll mean he'll start scoring for us. But yeah, Perez for me. But otherwise, they're truly a demolishing performance of a very, very weak Southampton side.
Yeah, Southampton were particularly poor, but I think I was very impressed by how Leicester didn't take their foot off the gas at all. It was absolutely ruthless. But Ed, building on Chris's point about Perez, obviously he was fantastic, but there were a lot of other players throughout the side who really performed. Was there anyone else that really stood out for you?
I guess for me, and I guess I've got to put this pre-warning out for anything I say about the match. We were drinking, and as someone who doesn't drink a lot, I may not have watched the game objectively. So, but I seem to remember amongst the beer goggles that their midfield, there was so much space, and just like, I think I can't pick a single player out really, but our midfield controlled that game, and every time we got it, we were creating stuff and going forwards, and every time we were in a dangerous area, I always thought we were going to create and score. And I think that's what I took away most from the game. That's what impressed me most, because of course we've sort of gotten used to being dead clinical and at least sometimes being semi-concerned about what's going to happen if VARDY doesn't score. But I feel like everyone sort of chipped in throughout the whole team, and that was my real take home from it.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. They dominated on every single statistic, shots, possession, passes, and the defence really didn't have a lot to do at all. But I think one player in particular who was coming for a little bit of stick, Chris, was Ben Chilwell. But he's finished this game with 2 assists to his name and a goal. So surely that's going to hopefully give him a bit of encouragement going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. For me, I didn't necessarily pick Ben Chilwell out as the weakest player. I think I remember at the time saying Harvey Barnes, but just to wrap your point up about Ben Chilwell, yeah, I think ultimately just on paper what he delivered, getting that goal, getting the assist. You can see how much it meant to him. So yeah, naturally, hopefully that's going to impact his confidence. But I think obviously all the players got to come away from this sort of grounded. We can't go away thinking we're going to be doing this to teams week in, week out. I think it's great. And I think, like you mentioned as well, that I think the team talk at half time was basically, we've got records, we can be beaten here. Let's go send a real message out to the two other teams that we're competing against, that we're not going to be easing off, as you often see in matches. We really did put them to the sword, which is very impressive. But yeah, just to talk about Harvey Barnes as a someone that I'm not worried about. I think he's probably the furthest away in terms of confidence. I think he's a massive confidence player, and I think he's the one who's lacking that Premier League sort of experience, maybe, or like when he's got the ball at his feet, sometimes it's frustrating to watch that. You can see space ahead of him, but he's maybe more inclined to maybe cut in or just not naturally move forward as fast as possible. I'm saying this knowing that he's got, I think, the second most assists in the league behind Kevin De Bruyne. I've seen that on Twitter earlier, which is obviously an impressive stat, but I think he could be a lot more efficient in terms of going forwards. But hopefully, this is not a criticism. I just hope that it's something that he does build, and he is a confidence player, and getting a goal or two or racking up more assists will help him. But he was one player that highlighted as maybe lacking confidence in that match.
Yeah, certainly in front of goal. I think we commented on his finishing was as you said, because he didn't really go for it with the confidence you'd expect from a proven goal scorer. He sort of snatched at it, but his creativity was up there. Really, I know we were sort of laughing that every time it came towards him, it was a Harvey Barnes assist, but he did actually get the assist. He only had more key passes than anyone on the pitch other than Ben Chilwell. So hopefully that's an encouraging game for him. What do you think, Ed, it says about Leicester City's mentality? Because VARDY was quoted as saying that at 6-0, Johnny Evans is running around the pitch telling everyone, lads, the record's there. It's 9-0. We won it. What do you think that says about them?
God knows. I think, well, first of all, it shows they're hungry for more. I'd have to question why you'd be going around the pitch saying that. I don't know. I think other managers might be a bit annoyed about just concentrate on the game, but you know what? It does show that they're hungry for records, and they're hungry to achieve, and they're hungry to progress, and so yeah, it's a good thing in that sense, I guess. I don't know. When you're 16 up, you can sort of afford. No disrespect to Southampton, but you can afford to take your foot off a bit. But I don't know. It's banter at the end of the day. We just won 9-0, so I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, but I don't think it's. Yeah, I get what you're saying. It seems a bit of a weird thing to do, but I think it is. It does show this sort of the mentality that exists within the squad. Ultimately, that there are a lot of teams that would have just sort of started playing it around, but it's weird, isn't it? Because in years gone by, teams like Man City have been criticised for almost, I don't know, patronising being the wrong word, but sort of, taking the piss a little bit in terms of once they are X amount of goals up, they start toying it around or doing skills or unnecessary things like that. So it just seems like we find things to sort of moan about in the modern game. Let's just go for it. If you're playing five-a-side, you wouldn't start. Well, you probably would actually at five-a-side start taking the mick a bit, but ultimately everyone's there to win. Jamie Vardy wants that golden boot. I'm sure he don't need to be told by Johnny Evans, look, I can fill my boots tonight, as he did, got 3. Perez as well. Perez has suddenly got a decent tally of goals that's probably put him I don't know, in the top 10 top goal scorers or something. So I think as naturally as a professional footballer, they would have wanted to just absolutely ruin that game.
To be fair, Johnny Evans was probably bored. He's probably sat on sat on the touchline reading Guinness Book of World Records, thumbing through that, and was oh, there's a record. I'll go tell Jamie Vardy, see what he thinks.
Yeah, it was just pure coincidence. It was at 6-0. He just happened to get to F in the records at that point and went, oh, football, here we go. I've got it. I mean, you mentioned Jamie Vardy there, Chris, about him he is now the top scorer in the league with 9 goals, ahead of Aguero and Abraham on 8. And he is actually another stat for you. I don't know you love a stat. Is in 2019, he is the top goal scorer with 21 goals, a conversion rate of 32%. That's better than Aguero on 20 at 24 and Mane on 19 at 28%. So do you think it is realistic that Vardy, say if Leicester do continue in a similar vein, Vardy's going to have a good shout of the Golden Boot, surely?
It's realistic for a couple of reasons. I'll start with a non-Leicester City one, that Aguero isn't necessarily a starter at Man City anymore, and that's for different reasons in terms of it seems like he's a Champions League player now. Pep's obviously thinking about the future, etc., etc. But that's not to say that you might start again. You never know with Pep. So that's one reason that we need to be mindful of. But in terms of other players, you've always got people like Kane or Aubameyang, etc. They're going to be threats. But if Jamie Vardy keeps starting, we know what his record's like. I'm not sure historically what the Golden Boot gets in terms of Premier League goals, but the rate he's going, I don't know if he even got a goal every 2 or 3 matches. I think that'd put him right up there, wouldn't it, towards the end of the season? And he doesn't look like stopping. But yeah, I think we need to be mindful of that. Let's face it, if Aguero had been playing, he'd probably be on about 14 or 15 by now. So it's a tricky one, but hopefully, fingers crossed as a Leicester fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's encouraging that
He's got a personal record.
Well, that's it. At age 32 as well, he keeps getting better and better almost. And we know Vardy does love a record, and he'll want that. He'll want his name up there. But Leicester themselves broke a few records that have been well spoken about. The biggest ever victory by an away side in English top flight football in 131 years. Is massive, and inflicted Southampton's biggest ever defeat, obviously. So they've had, it's been a record-breaking weekend for them. But do you think this is? I know we've sort of spoken about this before, but one of the questions that we had last week was about Leicester. Sort of, they're not really. I mean, they're getting through games, they're winning without playing particularly well. Now the shackles seem to come off in this game. Do you think this is a bit of a warning shot for the rest of the league?
I do, but lest we forget as well, it isn't the first big win to 0 this season. We did beat Newcastle 5-0. So it does show we can do it. But I certainly think it's a statement, isn't it? It's not just 3 points. It's sort of proving to both ourselves and those teams around us, particularly the bigger clubs around us who are doing less well this season. It says, look, you have got to pull your finger out now because we've just stuck 9 on a team away from home, and you're losing to drawing at home to Crystal Palace after being 2-0 up. This is a real statement. I think it's really showing that we are here to compete this season. It's not like we've had a good couple of games run and we're fortunate to be where we are. We're going to drop off. For me, this is us saying now, we've started well, and actually we've had some quite difficult fixtures, but we're still 3rd in the league. And what is that? The last 4 games since the international break. So what we got? 5, 14, 18 goals in 4 games. I think that's a great record.
No, absolutely. I mean, at this point in the season, they have more points than we did in the year that we went on to win the league in 2015-16. But we've scored the most goals in the league, bar Man City, and we've conceded the least, along with Liverpool and Sheffield United, which is surprising. But Sheffield United have only managed to score.
Yeah, if you take Liverpool out the equation, who have had like a crazy good start, 9 wins and 1 draw from 10 games, we're only 2 points off United, and we're already 5 points ahead of a team outside of a European play. No, well, let's say top 6 is Europe, 7th is 7 points behind. So we're already in a really strong position to kick on and achieve our goals of European football this season.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure if Jamie's got this down on the agenda, but before we move on from it, where would you now be disappointed if we came? I'll put a figure out there, 7th.
That was actually my next question.
I didn't want to gamble, Jamie.
No.
I just didn't want to leave it to any other business.
Sometimes gambles pay off, but
No, it's a good question. I mean, Ed, for you, where does surely the goalposts, like Chris is saying, the goalposts for Leicester have moved now.
Yeah. Do you remember what I said? What did I say at the start of the season? It was either 6th or 7th, I think.
I think you said just nicking Europe or competing for Europe. So yeah, 6th or 7th.
Well, I think from this point, there's a nice gap. I think before, if I would said 6/7th, if we came 8th or 9th, it'd be a bit disappointing, but not the end of the world. But from where we are now, if we finish 8th or 9th, I would be absolutely gutted. I think we're not far off. We're not far off, I don't think. Saying, right, we're going to get top 6, like, we're pretty... I don't know. If we get maybe another 5 matches keeping this sort of form up, and you're getting up to halfway through the season, and there's a nice, I don't know, 10-point gap to 7th, you really have got to start believing. And, you know, there will be a run of form this season where we have a few dodgy games and we're conceding silly goals and not scoring. But the longer that gap between us and teams outside of the top 6 stays there or even grows, the more and more confident I am getting. So at the minute, I'd say anything less than 6th would be a disappointment. But then again, we are only 10 games in. So let's give it 5 or 6 more games and then reassess.
That's a massively underwhelming and unexciting answer, and an absolutely dismal outlook on the season. To be comparing
5 points off 6th.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's about showing ambition. Like, we're doing everything right this season. Like, I'd actually be disappointed if we drop the pace. Like, everyone's gonna be dropping points, like outside Liverpool and Man City. Like, where we are now, we need to be looking forward, not looking at what's below us. I think Chelsea, yeah, they're showing form, but below that, I've said this all season, I'm really not rating anyone outside the current top 4. And I'm the goalposts for me. I said before the season started 4th, and I don't think they're not going to shift into the top 2. But I think we're showing more than enough credentials to be absolutely cementing ourselves in that top 4 this season. And I would go as far as saying that I would be disappointed if we started dropping off that and looking at where 7th is. When I look at the table, I don't look down there and think, oh, we're 4 or 5 points. All I've noticed is there not a 4-point gap from 5th now. And that's important to me. Looking at our upcoming fixtures as well, I think, you know, Palace and Arsenal, they're around that area, aren't they? So that gap could well extend. And
that's what I mean. Give it 5 or 6 more games and reassess.
I'm looking at the gap from 5th. So the goalposts for me have I'd say we should be aiming for top 4 now. Quietly.
Do you feel that the next sort of 6 or 7 games are going to be somewhat defining for Leicester's season? I mean, you touched on the fact that we played Palace and Arsenal, who are close to us. But we also, in that period, played Brighton, Everton, Watford, Villa, and Norwich. I mean, Leicester have come through a pretty tough run, but those games really do represent a chance for them to hopefully rack up some points and really, as you said, grow that gap. Surely.
Well, I think that's the thing. Like, don't get me wrong. I think we need to keep our feet on the ground. But at the same time, I think it's important to maintain that we can't underestimate our own ability. Like, in terms of like how we're playing and stuff, we're up there. Again, even though I'm going to say Liverpool are a class above Man City currently this season. Like, Man City aren't convincing me massively. But yeah, the top 2 is probably written off. But everyone else, Chelsea is showing some form. But again, a young side, inexperienced. But, you know, I'm not criticising them. They're doing great so far. But I think everyone else, there's enough reasons just to think that there's unsteady like squads, and I think we are steady, and that's what won us the league. Our consistency. We weren't overwhelming. We weren't, unlike this season, we weren't putting teams to the sword. But we've got that clinical edge now. People should start turning around and taking us seriously, and including us in that top 4 debate. So I just think that there's things that we've improved on whilst keeping key players like Schmeichel and VARDY, who were there in that championship winning season. So, you know, there's a couple of experienced heads. Another thing that we didn't have in that championship winning season, we've got these players who can say, look, this is how we're going to see this game out, you know. So it's an interesting one to look at.
I mean, yeah, no, definitely. And I think one of the other things that we had in the championship winning season was a lack of injuries. I know the sports science department was widely praised, but this takes me to a question that we've had in on Facebook from Joe Cuthbert. Thank you for sending this in, and as always, everyone, please do send your questions every week. He said, with Perez starting for us on Friday night and looking a real threat, is he the man that could potentially step in if VARDY were to get injured? As Joe says, he's worried we're light up top if VARDY is out for any length of time. Ed, what do you make of that? Say if VARDY was to get injured, does Perez have enough to step into those big shoes to fill?
Well, I'm going to send this over to Chris, as he made a humorous off-air comment to this question. So,
Chris, what?
In all honesty, I don't remember what I said, but
I'll tell you what Chris said, and I'll tell you my opinions on it.
To remind me, and I'll back it up.
Well, Chris said no next.
Oh right, yes, no, yeah, sorry, all right, Leicester, yes, yeah. Well, basically, I was dismissive of the fact.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you.
That's purely just keeping myself grounded, or the fan base in general should remain grounded, because yeah, he's had one really, really good game where he's shown real examples. But we spoke to the guys over at a Newcastle fan site, and they said he was capable of this throughout his time there. He can have a massive game, and then he'll be that energetic but again underwhelming player. So look, I'm happy for him and I want him to be a fantastic player, but he just doesn't fit the mold of the player I would like to see replace VARDY. He needs to prove it over more than one game as well. Like if he starts banging in goals into Christmas, then we can start considering him as a real replacement. But no one in their right mind can answer that confidently and say, yeah, he's the right guy, can they? Surely.
It's a much more emphatic answer detailed answer than the one you gave off.
Well, yeah, I think what Chris is saying, and yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, is look, his last game was fantastic, and he may well be showing what he's capable of now after a slow start. But since it's only one game, we need to give him a bit more time for him to prove it on a more consistent basis. And once he has, then we can be a bit more confident in using him as a backup to the main striker, as well as his role out wide.
I mean, it's an area. Do you think that it's an area that Leicester need to address as a matter of urgency in January, or in terms of do they utilise the transfer window, or is there anyone else in the squad that you see being able to fill that void?
I think it's the January transfer window has, well, historically, looking across the board for any team, it's very rare you find a gem or that team lets an actual good player go, let's face it. But we need to start being mindful of potentially qualifying for Europe, using the word potentially qualifying for the Champions League. And as soon as we do become a Champions League club, we all know that means that clubs are then going to demand, an extra 10-15% of the fee. And something we've been done cleverly in the past is we've never really been a sucker for these high fees. So you never know, maybe our board are identifying players and we could be moving for that player. But as I've said in previous podcasts, I think we need to sign a player and promise them you're going to be our, in Europe, or promise him something, because like Jamie Vardy ain't going to be playing 2 or 3 times a week sort of thing. So yeah, I think we need to set our bar high, but also act sensibly and not be suckered into sort of paying something absurd for a relatively unproven player. But I don't think we've got that player in the squad. Obviously, we're looking at players like Iheanacho. Well, only Iheanacho really, or whether Barnes can play through the middle. But both of them, in terms of goal scoring, haven't really delivered. So yeah, maybe it's going to have to be an external recruitment process.
Yeah, I think you're right, especially what you say about the January window. We've had a patchy record in bringing players in that time. I think the best one and most notable one for me that we've signed was Wilfred Ndidi. But apart from that, we've got players like Diabate and Amate and Gray who've been about. Andre Kramaric. They haven't covered themselves with glory. Is my point. But so I mean, talking about strengthening the squad, As always, Amar has sent another question in, and as always, it's a good one. He wants your thoughts on a couple of players. There are quite a few on the list, so I'll just pick out two that we haven't spoken about before. The firstly is the left back from Norwich, Jamal Lewis, and secondly is the centre back from Newcastle, Fabian Schär. Chris, I presume that was you.
Sound like a horse.
Yeah. Do you want to expand on that fairly short opinion, or?
Yeah, no, I think obviously, really, really appreciate Amar's questions every week. They basically keep the podcast going. Fair play. But no, disagree. Simply, I don't know enough about Lewis. I'm not going to lie. I don't. He's probably an impressive player and doing, but is he that impressive? Look at Norwich's defensive record. I'm not sure about his assists or his stats going forward, but I don't want to be signing another player of potential. And then you look at the opposite end of the spectrum. You got someone like Schär. Yeah, he's been around. He's probably not even as old as what I think he is. To be fair, he plays in.
He's young.
Is he? Well, either way, what I'm alluding to is that he's
27 actually. I'll tell a lie. Sorry.
Yeah, so he's probably got enough international caps, but he's not good enough for the Leicester City team. That'd be an underwhelming signing. It'd be a sideways move at best for us, as in we're not improving our squad. And look at what he's doing at Newcastle. He's struggling to stand out there, really. So that's enough about them two for me.
Can I offer an alternative viewpoint?
Always.
As with what you've just touched upon about VARDY, who will not be able to play 2 or 3 games a week every week if we qualify for Europe. Likewise, Johnny Evans won't. Do you want to rely on Wes Morgan?
Well, that's not going to happen.
I'm sure he's great around the club, but do we want him to be starting Premier League or European games? As such,
well, there's other players than Fabian Schär I'd be looking at, is my point.
Well, I mean, if somebody's willing to come in just as a seasoned international who's got Premier League experience, knowing he's going to be third choice centre back, I think there's worse players there. And as for the left back, like Chris says, I don't know a great deal about him, but likewise, Christian Fuchs isn't going to be here next season. We are going to need a left back who can play backup to Ben Chilwell. So whilst I can't say whether this guy is capable of doing it, I'm sure he's a good player, otherwise it wouldn't have been suggested. However, we do need to think about adding to the squad because, let's be honest, whilst I think our first 11 really is a match for every team in the league on their day, even Man City and Liverpool, where if we're at the top of our game, we'll give them a match. But once you start rotating in and out of that and a couple of key players get injured or tired from Europe, if we get there, we are going to need a bit more strength in depth, I think, so we can have a real good attempt the following season when we've got a bit more fixture congestion.
That is true, and I agree with everything you said, but I don't agree with the... We both understand that there's more players out there than Fabian Schär and the guy from Norwich. But yeah, the point you make is valid, and we will have to look at players who
Jadon Sancho,
a bit part role in the team. The reason Ed's just come out with Jadon Sancho is because Jamie's just reminded me of what I said last week, and someone's actually replied to a Sky Sports Premier League tweet saying. Well, the article being that he should go to Man United, but then someone goes, no, he should go to Leicester. It's good that it's not just me who shares that opinion. And I'm sure he would love to play a role in our European tour next year for a good team going forwards rather than backwards. But, we've spoken enough about that. So
I'm going to say it's Jay Allen who shared this opinion on Twitter, and he does usually speak sense as well. So that's 2 people on board with it now who normally do speak quite sensible stuff about Leicester.
Yeah, all aboard the Sancho train, toot.
Yeah. I mean, Sancho's not on it yet, but you never know.
We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. January, he's coming over, I've heard.
That would be a Rudkin madness. I just, can't.
Looking at houses in Colville.
Getting Blay there, right? Let's have a look at the Burton game, because Leicester do have a chance before going back to their Premier League campaign. to embark on a bit of a cup run. And Chris, I know that you're very, very keen for them to do that. So they're facing last year's semi-finalist. Burton had a brilliant run, which was ended rather abruptly in the semi-finals by Man City, where they lost 9-0 in one of the legs.
What was the score?
9-0.
All right.
In some nice symmetry. So they've got a young side. They've already seen off Bournemouth in this competition. Ed, I'll ask you because I know Chris will likely want to play our strongest team. So who comes in for you from the players that are in the squad and not starting on a regular basis?
11 players.
11 players.
Yes.
Wow. Do we even have 11 changes to make?
He said this in the past rounds, and just for pure reason that he's not done that once, he's not going to suddenly do that in this round, is he? Let's face it.
Do you want to know a fun stat I've got for you?
Yes.
We have lost 2 of the last 4 games against Burton.
I think some of them not pre-season friendlies.
Well, one was. The other, of course, was in the EFL Cup, 4-2 at home. That was in 2012, if you don't remember that match.
No.
Now, do you want to know who scored? I'll be impressed if you remember this player. Who scored our second goal? He was a Hungarian striker.
Marco Futak.
Yes, it was.
Great play.
Straight in. I bet you that. Well, who else? Who got the other one?
It was Anthony Knockaert. Oh, cool. We were 4-1 down at home in that match against Burton.
Outstanding. Their manager at the time would have been Gary Rowett as well, so they would have been a good side back then. But so looking at it now, you want to make 11 changes.
Yeah.
I personally think there'll be about 8 for what it's worth. But who in particular do you think will be looking to? Because there's a few players in there that will come in, your likes of Danny Ward, Christian Fuchs, for example, who realistically know they are cup players, they are fringe players. But is there anyone that you think has got a real chance of maybe pushing and getting themselves into the starting 11?
Just before you answer that, with 11 changes, who's going to start up front for Leicester City?
Iheanacho.
Okay, that's not going to happen.
I would start all the players who have hardly played this season, and players such as James Justin, players such as Damari Gray, Wes Morgan, Albrighton, Iheanacho, Amati, if he can somehow find a place. Give Chowdhury some minutes.
Who's going to partner Morgan?
Try it.
Who's going to partner Morgan at the back?
Oof, Amati. He plays everywhere, mate.
Not going to happen again,
Quality
is it?
Player.
I think it'd be a Morgan.
Who's going to play through? Who's going to be a 2 further forward in the middle then? If you got Pratt as a given.
You'll have Chowdhury.
Chowdhury, and who
against Luton? It was Tielemans.
I see Tielemans starting again personally.
Well, I suppose he's young. He's got legs. Well, they've all got legs, but
legs.
Well, I hope so.
Does help.
Dad, all round lads. Let's keep
bring in a youngster for the Bants. Bring in George Thomas.
Yeah, I don't think he's a centre midfield.
I'd say here you go. Nampalys Mendy.
Yeah, okay, so we've poo-pooed your idea. It's not going to be 11 changes.
How many was the last time? Do you remember?
It was quite a strong team, to be fair.
Can we have a look?
You had Ward in goal.
You two kill some time and I'll get it up. I'll find the team.
I've literally got it up in front of me, mate.
Pardon?
I've got it up, and
Okay.
it's hard. Ward, Fuchs, Evans, Morgan, Justin, Ndidi in front of those. Then you got Albrighton, Tielemans, Pratt, and Gray. Then you got Perez, who started through the middle but didn't score.
How many of those were changes? Ward was a change. Justin was a change. Morgan was a change. So 4 of the back 5 was a change. Ndidi played both. Tielemans played both. So there's only 3 players played that and the game before.
Did Pratt not start the game before as well?
No. Actually, no, it's 4 players started. Evans started both. Ndidi started both. Tielemans started both, and Perez started both.
I think just looking at it, it's Rodgers has come out and openly said that he's taking it seriously. That's purely why I'm so confident there's not going to be 11 changes. It's important. You can't just make 11 changes. I do think that ruins the sort of consistency or the mentality within the squad. You do need to have a couple of more regular players. I think it's just a sensible thing to do to keep them ticking over. Like maybe keep Perez in the team, for example, purely to see if he can play through the middle or if he can continue scoring. Maybe someone like Barnes, if Rodgers does believe, like me, that he's a confidence player, to take him under his arm, say, go and show me what you've got. It's just play relax. We've got this tonight. You can show us what you've got. And then I do think as well, you do need to have a bit of experience through the middle just to have that core. Whether that be Tielemans again, you don't know. But yeah, I think I'm going to say a bit lower than Jamie. Seems we're playing higher or lower. I think there'll be 6 or 7 changes, but a solid core of experience in there as well.
I mean, it would be, touching on what Ed mentioned as well, it would be quite nice to see some of the young players at least in and around the squad. I want us to keep a strong bench, but it'd be good to see the likes of George Hurst and we saw Le Chabela a couple of times earlier in the season. Bringing some of those young lads through would be quite encouraging. But I mean, so assuming we play the side that we've sort of semi-agreed upon so far, I mean, how do you see the game going, Chris, in terms of the scoreline? Are you ready to put a prediction on it? I mean. Also, we haven't mentioned your prediction from last week yet.
Well, I did that. I released a little clip on social media earlier, and yeah, I was very confident, wasn't I? I think I said it'd be 3-0 at half time, and I predicted a couple of goals for VARDY and Perez each, and fans to be leaving at 75. And I actually got some criticism on Facebook saying that wasn't accurate enough, and that there were fans leaving in the first half. So I'll take note of that, and I'll be even more accurate next time. I forgot your name, but thanks for the feedback anyway.
I think my favourite stat that we mentioned last week in our predictions, well, other than the ones Chris rightfully said, was about red cards. Southampton now have had, in their last 8 games in the Premier League, there's been 5 red cards. That is a streak.
Ill discipline, that.
Well, they're not all them, obviously. That would be crazy, but still, there's been a lot of red cards in games with them for some reason.
I think it's worth noting as well, and it's a good and a bad thing. Obviously, the players' wages they've donated to a local charity, I think, but I do feel like the fans should feel hard done by. I mean, it's great giving to charity, but there should be at least a gesture for them in the next game, on like a free drink or something. Because imagine turning up there and seeing that, it is quite devastating, to be fair. And it's not even it's how badly their own team played. That's the worst thing about it, I think, for me anyway.
Yeah, it was abject at best, wasn't it?
Chris, what's the Burton score going to be?
Yes, I'll answer the question now. And I haven't actually thought about the Burton score, but just looking at their form in different mid-table League One, they've knocked out Bournemouth last year. They've got a recent history of doing well, I think, over the last couple of years at least in this tournament. But I think both teams will score. I think we will take an early lead again, take a couple of goals. I think 3-1, and another Perez goal. But nothing out of the ordinary. 3-1, a relatively comfortable performance.
And Ed, what do you reckon?
I was going to say 3-1, but because Chris has been a knob, I will go 4-1.
4-1 with 11 changes.
Yeah. Soyuncu with 4 off the bench.
Obviously.
And what can't that guy do? I mean, he'll be disappointed he didn't score in a 9-0.
Actually, no, I did see another interesting stat. Is there only 2 outfield players that started in the Southampton game who haven't scored yet, I think?
Soyuncu and
Evans, I think, yeah.
Yeah, haven't scored, have they? No. Poor from them. They need to sort themselves out.
Yes.
I think it will be 2-0. I think it'll be cagey. It's away, isn't it, on a Tuesday night? You never know. But my predictions haven't been anywhere near as eerily accurate as you guys. So there you go. And then obviously after the weekend, we'll turn our attention to the Premier League again. And we come up against Crystal Palace. I don't think many people would have predicted that at this stage in the season, Leicester v Palace would be 3rd v 6th. But it is. Palace are only 5 points behind us. And they do have a great record against us. Chris, are you as confident heading into this game as you have been in the last few?
I'm not going to be massively confident. Obviously, I absolutely dismissed Southampton last week. I've done a little bit of studying at Palace, looking at their recent form. I watched the game against Man City, which was the last home game. They lost that 2-0, but they were absolutely dominated. And before that, they've beaten Norwich, drawn against Wolves, beat Aston Villa, and drawn against Everton. You can read into that how you wish. And they're the home games. Sorry, I just read out. For me, I think this will actually be a cagey game. Just because I think Roy Hodgson, the way he will set up, he's a manager who's experienced. He won't let his team be rolled over like that, what Southampton did. I do think we're going to win, but I think it'll be cagey. Again, both teams to score 2-1 this time, and I think it might be one of those games we go behind again. I think there's that stat that we've took the most points from losing positions, and I think we could be adding to that. I think it'll be tight, 2-1, and another VARDY goal, but nothing out of the ordinary to predict, but 2-1.
I mean, I definitely take that. It's a game that does always worry me whenever it comes around. Ed, is that something that you agree with? You think Leicester should still have enough for Palace despite their good run of form?
I'll give you a fun / depressing stat to start this off with.
Not too bad together.
Leicester have lost the last 4 Premier League games against Crystal Palace, conceding 13 and scoring 1 in the process. 13-1 in the last 4 games. I mean, we've lost 3-0, 5-0, 1-0, and 4-1.
I mean, there's bogey teams, and then there's whatever that is. That's
also, we remember in the championship winning season, me and Ed were there, and that was one of the Perez scored on the day, and that was a tricky game on the day, and we took something away. So I'm hoping we can channel that and just forget about these last 4 horror shows against Palace.
Well, but on a brighter note, we're going to win 2-0. So 2-0 this time. Thanks. 3 points.
Right. I mean, I want to be as confident. I mean, is there anyone in their team that you look at and particularly worries you other than, I mean, I know Zaha's talked to death, but is there anyone else in particular that you think, yeah, they've got the quality to turn a game on its head?
Well, Benteke's record's pretty incredible, isn't it, at the moment?
I see Crystal Palace. They are, and again, I'll say it like whenever I diss a team, no disrespect.
Does anyone say diss anymore?
Well, I'm keeping down with the kids, so yeah.
Kids again.
Well,
every week.
Crystal Palace are just like a meh team, aren't they? They're there. They've got a few decent players who are solid enough to stay up in the Premier League, but they never really inspire. I never feel like they're a threat. And this is off the back of a guy who supports a team who's lost the last 4 games 13-1. So it may appear a pretty stupid thing to say, but they're just like, nah, if you're wanting to finish in Europe, you can't be going into games like this. You've got to respect the opposition, but you can't be going in thinking, oh yeah, a point would be all right. We've got to really go for the 3 points, and if we play as well as we can, we should win by a couple of goals.
Can I jump in though? And Ed, you're often always reminding me that we shouldn't be dismissive of teams like Arsenal or traditional big teams in the Premier League. I'm sure you'll agree with that.
Yeah.
But this is a Palace side who came back to draw at the Emirates. Mm-hmm. So looking at recent form alone, is that not something that would concern you?
No, because like you say, we should thrash Arsenal, so we should do likewise with Crystal Palace.
I'm asking you because you've often argued against me, saying that we shouldn't be dismissive Arsenal are only X amount of points
I
behind.
think we can be more dismissive of teams such as who were got similar points to these big teams who are doing less well, such as Crystal Palace, Sheffield United, Bournemouth, etc. We can be more dismissive of them than an Arsenal or United.
Why?
Because I feel the Arsenal and United are decent sides out of form, whereas
Decent side,
Palace,
big.
a lesser side, who were doing very well for themselves. And it just takes one day for things to click for these bigger sides who have absolutely a few quality players who are just off it at the minute. Just needs to click one day and they're a real good team
I
again.
think there's more going on at Arsenal than just having a couple of players that are having an off day.
Well, that's why I'm just saying I feel like even when they're out of form, they still have some players that can turn it on and cause you real problems. Whereas a team like Palace,
Would you
I
not say
feel
they have
like,
more consistent players that can just consistently cause a nuisance at best?
I'd say if we play to the best of our ability, irrespective of how Crystal Palace play, we beat them. But if we play to the best of our ability and the bigger clubs beneath us, such as Chelsea, Arsenal, and Man U, I cannot say with 100% confidence that we get 3 points in those games.
Do you not think that's an element more so rather than it being the team? It's the fact we're going to bigger clubs and bigger stadiums that might be a bit daunting for a team like Leicester still.
I just think like Aubameyang's better than Benteke, for example.
I mean, you're drawing a very black and white comparison there. It's relatively irrelevant, isn't it?
Well, they've got players who you say could challenge for
We're also
like
talking
the
about people
golden boot.
like Zaha here, aren't we? I'm not drawing reference to Benteke.
Well, Zaha is, if you look at his stats this season, he's
You said
one
you
goal
signed last
contribution.
week.
He's got 1 assist in 10 matches, 0 goals.
What if you put him in around better players? You'd said you'd want to sign him.
Well, yes, but he's not around better players now, so he's less of a concern. I think Crystal Palace, the bigger concern with Palace, I think, will be us scoring rather than them not scoring as many. They're more of a solid defensive side.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the thing. You're looking at, they've got experienced heads in there. Well, notably, they signed Gary Cahill, who I, before the season started, did want Leicester City to move for. And then you've got fullbacks in Van Aanholt and Ward, again, relatively trusted Premier League players. But then looking at the midfield, yeah, I guess Zaha, Milivojevic is obviously a set piece specialist, but I guess he's relatively solid. And yeah, and Townsend and MacArthur, I think, are their two weak links. And then Ayew up top, who's again a hit and miss at best. So I think I agree with you in that. Yeah, that we need to be wary of that. It's if we can actually outscore them, even actually scoring against them. And I think if we do go ahead, then they have to come out and play, and that's when we can control the game. But I think they'll be happy taking this 0-0 into half time or trying, grabbing a goal and sitting off it at that pace. So yeah, it'll be an interesting game, but a different game, I think.
What do you think the score is going to be, Jamie?
Well, I agree with what you both just said, especially in that it's going to be on us to break them down. So it's again how we play against a more packed defence. We've shown we can do it. So I think if Maddison and Tielemans in particular have good games, then we'll win. But I can't see it being high scoring, end to end flowing football. I don't think we'll be first on match of the day. Put it that way. I'll give you 1-0 to Leicester because I'll be optimistic. But they do have one of the best defensive records in the league, Crystal Palace. So it's a tough place to go as well. Their home support is very good. And yeah, Benteke will probably score against us because we've slated him, and that is how this works.
I think it's a good challenge though, off the back of the Southampton game where we were just given like copious amounts of space in midfield to create and just keep the ball and make chances when we're not going to get that against Southampton with their packed defence. So
Palace.
If Palace even, we definitely could do that against Southampton. But Palace, sort of showed that we've got the ability to adapt, aka adaptability, so we can play against different sides. Because while scoring 9's ridiculous, they certainly made it easy for us. So this is a different test. So even if we come out and scrape a 1-0 win, 3 points is 3 points. So we'll take that.
Yeah, I think a scrappy win and another 3 points, keeping us let us keep in the title race for just another week. That'd be lovely, wouldn't it? So Chris, as always, now's the time when I ask you the question. Anything else you want to add? Because you normally do, to be fair.
No, not for me this week. I think I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to there being a midweek game. It's nice to have that consistency that we can hopefully carry through the week, and it'll be a nice stepping stone to Palace. I think the players will be eager. So I look forward to it, and hopefully we'll be here this time next week reporting on a double victory.
That's it. Yep, I think
I got 2 questions.
Chris had nearly wrapped up so neatly as well.
Well, all you have to do is ask everyone on the panel, Jamie. Just do your job properly, and we don't have this. Well, question 1 was on Twitter. We didn't actually answer it. We spoke a bit about players we'd want to sign, but very quickly, one of the questions was about quantity of players rather than names of players. So if we were to get in the Champions League, just pick a number. How many players do you think you'd like us to sign in the summer? Quality backup or going into the first team? 4. Nice number. Chris?
Yeah, I think you'd be looking at 4 or 5, wouldn't you? Nothing. We definitely don't want to be signing loads, rocking the boat. I think that's a mistake.
I think we may even go for I guess it's only 1 more than you, but 5 or 6. Yeah, a couple of players might leave, likes of Fuchs. Mendy's been linked with a move away. Players like Benkovic out on loan, he isn't getting a look in, so we might send him out. So we might actually look for a significant amount of play. 5 or 6, even if they're not first team regular starters, we need that backup. But yeah, that's the question from there. Because the other quick one, purely because I just saw it on Twitter and it made me laugh again. What did we think about what happened in the Arsenal game when their club captain came off the pitch?
Well, I think it's embarrassing for him. It's not even his performance. I don't think the fans were annoyed about that. It's what is he doing? He's dragging his heels, getting off the pitch, literally jog off or run off the pitch. It's an embarrassment. And I hope he does get captaincy taken off him, because he's an absolute sham of an example. For a big club, as you like, I agree with, they are a big club. They used to have leaders like Tony Adams and stuff. Imagine someone like that. It's an embarrassment to give him the armband. Literally go off the pitch and let your team win. It's absolutely disgusting, to be fair, in my opinion.
I agree. I think some players have come out and said, well, look, he's got every right to react in the way he did, with the whole over dramatic taking his shirt off and apparently swearing at fans. But the fans are the ones that are paying to be there. Jack has been being paid hundreds of thousands of pounds probably a week to play football. He should be able to put up with a bit of abuse for that. I mean, I'd let people scream at me at my job if I was being paid hundreds of thousands of pounds. If any of my co-workers listen to me, don't, please. But yeah, so he should have taken that better. I think if that was a Leicester player, I would be embarrassed. But Arsenal are an absolute banter club at the minute anyway. So
I couldn't see Wes Morgan doing that, could you?
No.
And then finally, we did miss another question, but I think we basically answered it. Basically, I forgot the guy's name, so apologies. But the question was ultimately, why are we not seeing people like Iheanacho or fringe players coming on? I don't actually know who's on the bench against Southampton, but why didn't we give someone a chance when we were 6 or 7-0 up? And I think we did answer that in the way that, our team was hungry to go and get 8 and 9 rather than give it an opportunity to try a new system or try players out. So I think we did answer that. Obviously,
Iheanacho wasn't on the bench.
Well, I didn't even
Brighton and Gray came on.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be fair, the question said Iheanacho. I didn't know he wasn't on the bench. But yeah, ultimately, I think the answer is that we did use players, and it wasn't really a time to be trying something different when we did have a record in our sights. So That probably wraps that one up.
Maybe Johnny Evans told Brendan Rodgers about the record and he decided.
Actually, it's interesting you should say that because I did hear on my beloved Talk Sport this morning that apparently the team talk at halftime was relatively dictated by the players, where Rodgers went in and said, "Look, what do you think, guys?" And that, you know, a few of the leaders, maybe people like Evans, came up to the front and said, "Look, we're not taking our foot off the gas here," sort of thing. We're going for it. So it was an interesting little dynamic there, again showing that these players are hungry. So that's really pleasing to see.
That's believable given the subs, to be fair, because the other subs were Chowdhury, Justin, Morgan, Prayer, Ward. None of them are really attacking. So like we only made 2 changes and they were both attacking players. So it was like we were trying to keep it fresh in attack so we could create more.
Exactly. Obviously, Iheanacho stated he wasn't there, but Justin, he could have easily been given time, couldn't he? To be fair to him, a straight swap, and we didn't see that. And I think that's why I do believe that the players were like, "No, please don't bring me off," sort of thing. Like, not even in a beg you way, just like, "Look, give me the 90 minutes, and we can create some history here." So,
and also they weren't actually being made to work all that hard. I mean, the pace of the game was quick when we were going forward, but we were barely out of their half. Like they were. It's not like we were countering full pitch runs or defensive tracking, but it was like a training game. We were scoring every 5 minutes or 10 minutes and trotting back to the halfway. So I think in terms of saving legs, did we really need to? No. And we gave minutes to the guys who probably would have wanted them. Pratt's probably can feel a little bit hard done by, but
he'll get 90 minutes against Burton, won't he?
And he would have had one eye on that game. And I think these players are going to have a role to play over the festive period, especially. So I think you'll see more rotation then, if that answers that question somewhat. Right. So I think that was your 2 questions, Ed, and another question, Christian. So I think that is a good place as ever to leave it. As Chris said, hopefully we can be sat here in a week and you'll be joining us once again. We'll be celebrating another 1 step towards Wembley and another 3 points to maybe to even into Premier League title. No, we're not going to get that excited, but we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.